The topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the Connected Table Live. We are your hosts, Melanie Young and David Ransom, your insatiably curious culinary couple. Each week we bring you the dynamic people who work front and center and behind the scenes in food, wine, spirits, and hospitality. Welcome. This week we are dedicating our guests to education. Give a man to give a man to fish and you feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish and you feed him for a lifetime. It's a Chinese proverb and reflects the individuals we will talk to today. Our first guest is Nathalie Dupree. She is the grande dame of Southern cooking, and I am from the South and very proud of my heritage, and no one defines it like Nathalie. For nearly a decade, Nathalie founded and ran a cooking school in Rich's department store in Atlanta, which turned out more than 10,000 students and classes and apprentice programs, creating a stellar list of guest instructors. She was a founder of the International Association of Cooking Schools, now the International Association of Culinary Professionals, and the Southern Foodways Alliance, and the Charleston Wine and Food Festival. Nathalie became the first woman to have more television cooking shows than Julia Child, over 300 for the Food Network, PBS, and the Learning Channel. She is a best-selling author with 13 hardback and 2 softback cookbooks. Her best-selling cookbook, New Southern Cooking, started an entire culinary movement. She's won James Beard Awards for Southern Memories and Comfortable Entertaining, and the book we love is her Biscuits book, and Nathalie Dupree's Mastering the Art of Southern Cooking with Nathalie Dupree, her co-author. Welcome, Nathalie.
Hey there, Miss Melanie and David. How are you all?
We're just doing great, Nathalie. So nice to have you on the show.
We all are fun and wishing we were in Charleston, South Carolina, where you live now.
I wish you were here, too. It's still beautiful, although a little chillier than you have there.
And you got the festival coming up soon, right?
We are. We're very excited about our Food and Wine Festival. It comes up in a few weeks, and it's going to be a crackerjack experience again. And I wish you could come for that.
We wish we could. We're going to be there in spirit, especially since you were one of the founders. Nathalie, I knew you back when I knew of you when I was a small runt working at Cohn & Wolfe in Atlanta as a PR person. And you really were and have always been the go-to for Southern cooking for more than 4 decades. What do you think some of the most notable developments are taking place in the culinary South today, which really has risen again when it comes to food?
Well, it has. The South is as popular now as Italian was a few years ago, which feels a little incredible to me. But I think part of what has happened is that it's the whole movement towards fresh foods and vegetables has focused then on the fact that the South has always celebrated them and always had them. And a lot of other areas are new to them. I mean, before there was Florida and California, there was the South and its propensity for growing vegetables. So I think people are certainly aware of that as part of the overall movement towards vegetables and
well, I think it's great. I mean, growing up, my vegetables were boiled to death. In fact, when David, my Yankee husband, came down and saw my mother cooking green beans for a day, he about blanched. And you're working on a book about vegetables, right?
Yes, it's coming out shortly. But, you have to give a little thought to geography, David. I think we do forget geography when we are stepping back and looking at someone else's cuisine. There were times and people that talked about cooking their vegetables in the South for a short period of time. And those were people that had cooks, had servants, or slaves at home, and they were more of a rarefied people. But if you were working in the heat, in the country, plowing or planting or any of those things, you would want to prepare your vegetables early on the day and put them on low on the back of the stove, rather than coming in and heating up 4 pots of vegetables or even an oven and cooking them on a high heat. So, and then also, all the vegetables were older and tougher those days.
Sure, yeah.
And meat was a condiment, not the main part of the meal. The meal was focused more around vegetables than around meat. So all of those things mattered when you talk about cooking something long and slow. It was for a reason, and multiple reasons, really. Everything fed each other. So we have to give a little permission to people for cooking that way.
We certainly do. I always call myself a displaced Southerner who grew up in the North anyways, because I love the culture and the food and the history down there so much.
And the women.
And the women, of course. I married one. And I grew up with a mother who had almost an acre vegetable garden, and up in upstate New York, that's a lot. And so we were always growing vegetables and eating vegetables, and it was a huge part of our diet growing up too, Natalie. And I remember my mother always used to do exactly what you were talking about, prep things early and kind of get them ready to go. But as the vegetables were so fresh coming right out of the garden when we were growing up, we wouldn't have to cook them for long, things like that. And the types of vegetables we were growing were vegetables really that didn't require a lot of cooking. So there was always that too. And I know a lot of the leafy greens and things like collards down in the South, obviously you need to cook them for a fairly decent amount of time before they're something that you want to eat.
I mean, now we have, if you could afford to pull all the little ones and use them for a salad, that was a luxury for a large part of the time, and because usually you had to grow them big in order to get as much out of them as you could.
Yeah, sure.
What are some of that? They call the South Atlanta, bacon and pork. So while meat was a condiment, the perception is that Southerners love their meat and their pork and their barbecue, which has long traditions in there. So it's interesting that you brought it up that meat was a condiment. That's very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at all the old books, they vegetables. In fact, in our book, Mastering the Art of Southern Cooking, we had more vegetables than any other chapter. It was our biggest. It was our biggest chapter, and although I think people lose sight of the fact that the South is the eastern seaboard from Maryland down, and across over to Texas,
and that's a big farmland
through the coast. So when you think about that, and you say pork, you're really losing all of that coast, which was all seafood based by and large, and you're forgetting some of the other things that were available. I would always think that chicken was more popular than pork in some areas, particularly in the really hot areas where because pork is heavy, but and people always come down to Charleston looking for fried chicken, and it's only recently that you can find it on a lot of menus, and that's because of all the tourists now, not because people here ate fried chicken. I mean, why would you eat fried chicken if you had fresh shrimp?
Well, exactly. There's nothing better than the shrimp that comes off the Carolina coast, in my opinion. And when I think of Southern cuisine from that region, it's all seafood based. One of the last things I would think of would be fried chicken, to be honest with you.
Well, the reason is the South, so many different regions. You've got the Mid-South, you've got the Appalachian South, you've got the Texans, you've got the coast. There is no Southern cuisine. It's all regional, wouldn't you say?
That's right. And I mean, if you were thinking about the fact that the South is at least 2.5 times the size of Europe, then, and you think about all the Italian cuisines, you can see that there are little pockets of this and that all through the South. I mean, we have little Chinese areas and
tamales in Mississippi.
Yeah, and tamales in Mississippi, and it goes on that way. So people do try to lump us as pork or this or that, but we are more. We are more than that, I think, and we're more. But particularly the vegetables and the fruits until Florida came in and gobbled up all the attention for it.
You know, it's interesting you say all that because, you know, I think a lot of people's perception of what differentiates the South is the type of barbecue sauce they put on their pork.
Yes, and you know,
and for them, that's what makes the South a different thing. Whether it's a Carolina sauce or a Texas sauce or a Kansas City sauce or something like that. So, you know, a lot of people, that is their perception, and they don't see the nuances that come out in so much of what really actually is Southern cuisine, which I really think that is.
That's your South. My South was different growing up in Tennessee. Yeah. I mean, we had barbecue, but we really ate a lot of casseroles.
I think casseroles were very definitely in it, and the same kind of thing. You could cook everything separately and ahead of time and in the cool, and then just combine them and throw them in the oven on a low heat.
And they were also ultimately portable, so you could take them places.
Well, I had a working mom, so I had a working mom, and so casseroles were, kind of had to throw, the protein and the vegetables and the fat all together and brown and serve, and it was what you brought to funerals and celebrations and every kind of celebration. There's a whole casserole tradition that you actually forget about. But
of course, go on.
But we love where you live in the Carolinas right now.
Oh, well, we love it, too. I wanted to talk about that barbecue thing because although in the opening scene of Gone with the Wind, the great record of Southern food that everyone's most familiar with, there was a barbecue scene with the pig roasting, but that was for a large event, for a glamorous party that was being held at a neighboring plantation, and that was really one of the few exposures to barbecue that we had. That was on large holidays, Memorial Day, 4th of July, times like that, Labor Day, big events were times that we would have barbecues. But it wasn't, and even Christmas sometimes, some places, but it wasn't what people are thinking of as barbecue now, where you drive through and get it. It wasn't popular to the same degree. Not even out in rural Georgia where I lived did we have any kind of barbecue places. We had fried catfish places. Mm-hmm. But North Carolina had barbecue places. But I would venture to say that they really weren't known nationally until maybe the mid-'70s or even early '80s. Barbecue was not that forceful of a tradition until those times. And then you started getting into barbecue everywhere. The beef barbecue in Texas, which is technically part of the South.
Yes, it is.
So barbecue is, on the culinary horizon, it's less than 100 years old, really less than 50, in terms of being a pivotal conversation, major part of a diet. And even then, I mean, there might be people that have barbecue every day for lunch, but that would be a matter of convenience, having something close by. By and large, barbecue, even barbecue sandwiches, are not something that you go for every day.
No, we always had a meat and three. I mean, there was always a protein, a protein, and then there was always 2 vegetables and a starch. It was pretty balanced,
right?
And that was how we ate every day. Yeah, every single. So you grew up in rural Georgia. What are your food memories?
Well, actually, I grew up in Virginia. I'm kind of a vagabond. I lived in Georgia,
vagabond.
and I lived in Texas my freshman year of college, where I remember long cooked greens and so forth in the college as well. And then lived in rural Georgia when I first started my restaurant. And the beef that we had, what you did usually was you bid on a 4-H cow or animal, I should say, and then you would buy it from the child who had brought it up and fed it out the whole way, so that it was really a really tasty piece of meat, and that you would buy it, and then the local freezer locker would cut it up for you, and they would keep it for you, and as you needed it, you would go and get it. So that was where what our beef supply was. And then of course, in the fall, you would kill your pork in Tennessee and in Georgia, but you get much further down south, and they might even be more towards Christmas or January. And that would be when you would have your one pig that you would cut up for the family and then sell the rest. So, and
very
put up
seasonal. The heat is such a factor in the South.
The heat is such a factor, because you're not going to kill your pork and hang up your pork in the smokehouse to cook if it's 90 degrees out.
Well, exactly right. Yeah.
And it also impacted the seasonings used in different parts, because obviously in the Delta, the seasoning is far different from Appalachia.
Right.
And also low country. And it's what I love about the South is that every region is so different. There's some similarities and yet so different. A cobbler, for example, I remember Kim Severson did this great article on how a cobbler is redone and redefined in different parts of the South. Just one staple dish done different ways.
Absolutely. And you think about it again, if you live in the low country anywhere, you are not going to make a peach pie in August. That is not going to be your concept of a peach cobbler.
Well, that's just white shoes in November.
Right. Right, exactly. You're not going to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and fix biscuits for the family before they go out to work in the heat, and also make a pie crust and bake a peach pie and get all that done before breakfast. Because by breakfast time, everybody's gone, and if you still have some time, you're fixing lunch, or what we call dinner, and it's too hot to make a pie crust in the early days, before air conditioning. So you would do a batter. Right, so you do a batter cobbler. Same reason we do biscuits. Why do we do biscuits? Because it's too hot to put a 40-minute loaf of bread in there and cook a loaf of bread, even first thing in the morning. You don't want to heat up your kitchen for that long. You want to heat it up enough to make your biscuits and then turn it off.
And biscuits take a lot less time. David's a bread baker and I'm a biscuit maker. And I have to say, after several attempts, I finally made from one of your recipes, a terrific biscuit this past Sunday. I've been documenting my biscuit attempts. I mean, it's been hard. My mother makes angel biscuits, so she's the drop type, but I just like a certain type of taste and smell and texture. And, it really is, you talk about not manhandling the dough too much. Share with the listeners, the key to making a great biscuit, because it really is a technique as well.
Well, it is a technique, and I think that we tend to think that home cooks don't have techniques, but they have techniques like everyone, like fancy chefs do. First of all, you want to get a large, wide bowl rather than a small, narrow bowl, because a large, wide bowl helps you avoid overworking the same dough, mashing it in one place like you do in a small bowl. Next, you want to have a southern flour, a low gluten flour, and you want to sift it or break it up in such a way, I use a whisk, so that it's lighter and fluffier. You want to, when you add the fat, you want to snap it in. They say cut it in, and you're not going to go get a scissors and cut it in. You're going to snap. If you put the butter between your fingers and make a snapping motion, then that flattens the butter or the Crisco. And
Sure.
each fat has different lightness, shortening and lard are lighter. And then butter is not as light, but of course it brings more flavor. So I like a mixture of fats if you can have it. And then every liquid brings a little different something to the table as well. And once you mix the liquid in, it used to be that they would put any amount of flour into the bowl, and then Kate, who worked for me, she would pat down firmly right in the center and make a hollow. A well is the wrong word. It was a hollow in the flour. Mm-hmm. And then she would just grab a handful of Crisco. She liked Crisco. And throw it right in that hollow. And then she'd pour in her milk or her buttermilk. She didn't care which. And it was self-rising flour in the bowl, which means that it had baking powder already added. And then she would just mush the butter and the milk together with her two fingers or with her hand, and then take that butter and the milk, and it became like a sort of almost a batter consistency by just sitting in the flour. And then she would work her hands, moving them around in a little motion, circular motion, moving that mass from the middle around the side of the bowl where it would slowly pick up flour as it eddied around. Really makes an eddy, and that eddy goes around and licks up the flour that's underneath it until 2 or 3 turns around, and all of a sudden it has pulled together. And then the outside is more floured than the inside. Then you get underneath it with your hands and you flip it over, and then you've got top and bottom in flour, but the inside is wet. If you stick your finger into the dough and pull it out again, you'll have all these little bits of dough just clinging to your finger. And you want a wet dough, because the wet dough is going to create the steam that's going to make it lighter.
Sure.
Well, I had a lot of wet dough going on. David had to help me there because my hands were so tacky.
Well, we found out a wonderful thing after we wrote the book, which was that if you get those little sheets from the grocery store that cost about $5, those little plastic flexible cutting boards.
Oh, sure,
If you dump your dough onto that, the pulled together wet dough, just flour one of those a little easily. And then rather than folding it over with your hands, which we did then, once you get this wet gloppy mess, you would either pull out a piece of it and dip it in the flour and put it in your hand and make a roll kind of a thing like a biscuit and then pat it down. Or you would take and dump it all out now, in these days, onto one of those plastic things and just fold that plastic thing over, and you don't get to get your hands dirty. It's wonderful.
There you go. Although I love getting my hands dirty cooking.
Yeah, and then you scrape off any dough that happens to be attached to that flexible board, and you just flop it down on top of the dough that you have pressed, and then you make sure that's patted out, about half an inch thick. And then you take that plastic board and you fold it the other way, and then you fold it again the other way. If you don't have a plastic board, you have to use your hand. But those 3 folds create layers like puff pastry.
Sure.
And then you pat it all the way out, and you can cut it into biscuits. Right. So it's really the easiest thing to do when you have some of those. Even a Silpat sheet will do if you have one.
Well, it's been a labor of love for Melanie to learn how to make biscuits over the last year or two, I think. And she's downloaded your recipes. She's used your book, Mastering. She's used them all, and this past weekend was, I think, the breakthrough.
It was a breakthrough moment
where they smelled right, they looked right, they flaked, everything worked.
Right,
and we had 3 recipes.
Oh, you did? Well, good for you. Did you put them close up in the pan? Because they really like to cuddle.
Yeah,
when the dough is
you
wet.
cuddle and they rise higher. I learned that, and I
Yeah.
could cuddle. Oh, we wanted to cuddle after, actually.
Yeah,
So you have,
yeah.
we're going to have to, this goes so fast, you're going to have to come back because we haven't gotten into
Well,
other
I'd love
stuff.
it. I'd love being here, and thank you so much for.
Well, I just have one last question for you. Do you like your tea sweet or unsweet?
Oh, honey, I wouldn't have it any other way but sweet. You just shouldn't have to order it that way. You know,
You
you shouldn't have to.
I only have it sweet.
If you order tea, you should expect it to be sweet. And you know, if they're going to serve it unsweetened, they can say, "I'll bring you your tea, but would you prefer it unsweetened?" You know, as opposed to the other way around.
Well,
We can't wait to have some sweet tea with you in Charleston, and hope to see you soon. I just want to do a shout out. Tell everybody your website so they can go see all your recipes and videos.
NatalieDupree.com, and I'm active on Facebook too.
You sure are. So hook in and follow and the real deal when it comes to great Southern cooking. Natalie, we'll have you back. Thank you so much, and big hugs.
Thank you. I enjoyed it. Bye bye.
Natalie, thanks so much. Enjoy the
Bye,
day.
y'all.
Yeah.
Bye.
I love that woman. And that book, Mastering the Art of Southern Cooking, is just divine. It actually fell on my foot. I almost had to get a bandage. It's a big book. It's a Bible. So we're going to switch gears and head back up to New York. We're still talking education, and our next two guests, we have someone who is the educator and someone who has been educated to share how his experience went. Richard Grausman is one of America's most respected culinary educators, and credits actually Cooking with the Late James Beard with inspiring him to transition from an import career into a professional culinary career. After studying and earning high marks at the Le Cordon Bleu in Paris, he became their ambassador for many years, and in that role, traveling around the country in Paris, teaching, he saw something that disturbed him. He saw that there was, people who needed more education who maybe couldn't afford it. And as a result, they didn't have access to the right jobs out there in restaurants. And he saw an opportunity to make things happen and make change happen. After Le Cordon Bleu changed ownership, he spent the next few years teaching and writing. He wrote a hugely successful book called At Home with the French Classics by Workman, which became French Classic Made Easy. In 1990, he piloted a program in 12 New York City high schools to teach French cooking and home economics. They were all inner city high schools filled with underserved students, and that's when his aha moment came to create Careers Through Culinary Arts program, better known to all of us as C-CAP. It's a nonprofit whose goal is to provide teacher training, educational opportunities, and rounds of other opportunities for underserved students. C-CAP currently works with over 165 public schools and more than 220 teachers, and not only in New York but around the country, and it's awarded over $43 million in scholarships. Welcome, Richard. And before I finish, and with him, we are fortunate to have Kelvin Fernandez, who is a C-CAP scholarship recipient, a CIA grad, is in the Culinary Institute of America, and C-CAP's youngest executive chef. He became an executive chef at the young age of 22, and he currently works as executive chef of La Marina restaurant in New York City. So welcome, Richard, and welcome, Kelvin.
Thank you.
Kelvin,
how are you?
Excellent, Richard. It's always great to have you on the phone, and it's a pleasure to be on the show as well with you.
It's great.
Well, it's great. It's great having you guys on.
Before I get started, I just Natalie is an old friend, but she was a student of mine back in the 70s.
No way.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, you taught her well. I will say that.
This industry really is 6 degrees of separation plus ingredients. So we're going to start, Richard. We're going to start with you, and then have Kelvin weigh in because C-CAP really has had such an influence on young people's lives, and it's so important. What do you want our listeners to know about the mission of C-CAP?
Well, It's quite simple. We work with public school, high school students and their teachers, their food teachers, and we are promoting and providing food service career opportunities for youth that have been underserved, and we do it through education and employment. We're constantly trying to give them, through their teachers, the skills and proper attitude to get and hold entry-level jobs, which then lead to careers. And it's not an easy job to do based on the youth of today, but it's been very successful, and Kelvin is a result of one of our great teachers and the advice and direction that CCAP has been able to give our students and graduates over the years.
What is your success rate in terms of placing CCAP alum? I mean, is a higher normal placement for your recipients and your students?
Yeah, well, we say that when a student is ready to get a job, that student will show up on time, will want to work, will want to learn. They have basic safety, sanitation, and knife skills, and they're not afraid to use a mop. So with those few hard skills and the rest soft skills of holding down a job, if they have that, and we place that in the hands of a chef, that's 100% success. They don't want to go home. They want to learn. The chef wants to teach them, and they move very rapidly up the ranks. And that's one of the reasons someone like Kelvin, who had the great basic skills and attitude, made it to the top so quickly.
Well, we're gonna switch briefly to Kelvin. We're gonna go back and forth with each of you to have enough time. Kelvin, you're a big basketball guy. You love basketball. Played it in high school. Your story is you followed a girlfriend into a cooking class.
He was a baseball player.
I mean baseball. Sorry, baseball. I can't see right
now.
You know what? Because I saw NBA, and that's where I got it, because you do some chefing for NBA. So a baseball player. You followed a girlfriend into cooking class while attending Long Island City High School in Queens, and they say you never look back, and you entered CCAP at 2003. You entered a cooking competition for scholarships and was awarded $40,000 to attend the Culinary Institute of America. You also talk about in your bio the incredible mentoring that you received from one of your teachers at CCAP. Do you want to share that experience?
Absolutely. The opportunity that I have at Long Island City High School, comes once in a lifetime. So I was making sure that I took advantage of it. Terry Mattis was my mentor at the time in high school. And I was having the opportunity, he was a very firm teacher, and what was best about him, he saw potential, and he made sure that he highlighted the individuals to make them the best that they can be. I remember one time when it was time to practice for the CCAP finals, we were at school every night after class, practicing night after night, just to make sure that we were perfect when it came to the finals. I always remember him telling me that when I won the scholarship for CCAP, it was a proud moment, and he felt like a father, which was awesome.
It's an incredible honor, and the mentoring is very, very valuable, because it's not only, earning a scholarship, it's being mentored and taught and disciplined, because it is such a discipline to work in a kitchen. And that's something that's very valuable, particularly, Richard, when you're bringing people on at such a young age to train. I think that's really, really, really important. What you're feeling on balancing getting an education versus on-the-job training, if you were talking to anyone who was thinking about becoming a chef?
Well, I'd say that the best combination is a combination of both. And we have an example of an apprenticeship program that has been done for hundreds of years. And we used to have a strong apprenticeship program in the States. It's been trimmed down dramatically. There aren't that many hotels or chefs that will follow a strict apprenticeship program. But we've started working with Danielle Ballou because he wanted to bring back that concept. And we've had 1 year, and we're expanding on it this year, where we have students that graduate from high school. They get into college at New York City Tech, which is in Brooklyn, and they go to classes as well as working in the restaurant. So it's a combination. We've arranged with the college to structure their classes so that there's time for both. And I can't stress enough for those students that go strictly to culinary school to take every opportunity while at school to work as well, because there's always time on weekends, or because if you don't work while you're going to school, you will not be at the level of students that have been just going to work. People come out of school and they think they're going to be at a higher level, but without that work experience, you have to start at the bottom.
Very, very true. And it disciplines you because, as you know, as we all know, the restaurant business and the food service business is not 9 to 5. It's 24/7, and you got to be on your feet, and it's very physical, and you have to make quick decisions, and you have to think and be a part of a team, because that's what a kitchen is.
And if you haven't had the work experience, you come out of school and the work part is too hard. If you start as a teenager while in high school, like we do with our students in the summer year of their junior year, by giving them job experience, and then they work through their senior year part-time, they already have the understanding of how hard the work is. Now, when you're young, and Kelvin can attest to this, when you're young, that hard work is fun. But if you've spent 4 years in a college where you've been really leading an easy life and then go into the kitchen, your chances of success are few. There are many opportunities in the industry for people to find jobs outside of the kitchen, but if you're really driven to work as a chef, it's important to start early.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because I think that that you're right on so many levels. There's, I think of the Culinary Institute of America in Hyde Park, and obviously the various other campuses it has now as well. And so many of the people that go there are not going there straight out of high school. They go there because they've decided to switch careers, or they look at it as a second career, or maybe even a third career, whatever it may be, or. And they say, okay, I'm going to go to culinary school and be a chef, but when they do that, they have no idea what a hard business it is to be in, because they don't have the experience before they go. So I know with your students that go on to the CIA, whether through scholarship programs or not, they've already got that experience under their belt, and they kind of know what they're getting into. So I think it kind of builds a building block of success from the get-go with them.
That's right.
Kelvin, what would be your advice to any young man or woman who is uncertain about pursuing a career in the restaurant business?
I think the most important thing for a young aspiring chef is to have, strong skills and then become a sponge on the job. I show up early, late, learn. I think the most important thing aside from that is not to think that once you graduate culinary school, you'll become a chef quickly. Everything comes with hard work, dedication, and time. I found a mentor after Mr. Mathis, and it was Mr. G and CCAP, and that helped me build the foundation that I needed.
Well, I think it's important to have a mentor, and I think you brought up a really good point. If you're going to cooking school, you're not going to come out and end up on Chopped. Okay, there's a path that leads to that, and even though you have appeared on Chopped, and too many people who go to cooking school have these grand ideas of getting their TV show and finding fame, and there's a whole long walk toward that fame if you get it, and many don't. Right, Richard? That's
for sure. You shouldn't be looking for that unless you're first an actor and then learn to cook, and you want to get on TV. But if you want to succeed in the industry, you become a great chef, and the more you work and the more you teach to other young chefs under you, the better you will be in presenting yourself eventually on television if you get the opportunity. But I'm sure there are, like Kelvin has learned, he's not there to be on Chopped. He was ready to be on Chopped when they contacted him because
Right.
he was already a very fine chef.
Exactly. And you have to think that way. Now, on the practical side, let's make sure we get all this in. The website is ccapinc.org. How can anyone listening or their kids apply for scholarships?
Well, to get scholarships, we have programs in New York, Philadelphia, D.C., and Prince George County, the Tidewater area of Virginia, Chicago, Arizona, and L.A. So if you're in a high school that has a culinary program in any of those areas, chances are you are a part of CCAP. And the teachers will know how to get you into our competitions.
That's good to know. And you can go on the website to find those schools, correct?
Correct. There's a lot on our website, both for people who are involved in our program, students who want advice, information about culinary schools, other scholarships that are out there for young people. And there's a button on the front page to contribute if they'd like to.
Speaking of contribution, even though this is a national show, but we would point out that anybody can contribute to CCAP, and you have a big event coming up next week, correct?
Oh, yes. It's our annual benefit where Kelvin is one of 43 chefs, New York chefs, who are preparing food for our guests. We'll have about 800 guests that night. And a lot of other young students and graduates will be helping the chefs. It's a wonderful, wonderful evening.
And you're honoring Alexander Smalls and Richard Parsons, and we had J.J. Johnson on our show last week.
Oh,
Cecil
yeah, and JJ is winning a Star Chef's Rising Chefs Award tonight.
Oh,
Yes.
That's right, which is also, I hear, benefiting CCAP. That's fantastic.
Correct. Yeah, JJ's got a great palate, and he's a young culinarian out of the CIA, and I met him for the first time last year at our benefit, and he and Carlton McCoy, who's a graduate of CCAP, they were roommates up at
Well, it's funny you mentioned Carlton, because a couple of years ago I actually wrote an article for the magazine I write for, Tasting Panel Magazine. I did a profile of Carlton because he had just attained Master Sommelier status, and
isn't that fantastic?
Which is amazing. His story was amazing to me, and Kelvin's yours is kind of parallels it on the culinary side, but Carlton decided to go towards the wine side of the culinary industry instead of the food side. And he's basically reached the pinnacle of his profession in that respect. And he was a kid that grew up in, Southeast Washington, D.C., the rough neighborhood. He said, I remember when we were talking on the phone during the interview, he was like, I'd walk down the street and there'd be bullets flying over my head. It was the murder capital of the country, and the only solace I found was cooking with my mother and my family, and I needed to get off the streets. And his grandmother, that's right. And I needed to get off the streets, and that's when I was introduced to CCAP. And he took that ride, went to the CIA, and now he's one of the top sommeliers in the country at one of the best restaurants in the country, and has really made quite a career out of it. So kudos to you.
He and Kelvin and another 50 of our graduates are our pride and joy.
Yeah. Well, and Kelvin, I know you do too as well, but when we were talking, he had nothing but good things to say about getting involved with CCAP and wanting to give back as he made a name for himself once going through it. So it's nice to see that he's still involved as well.
Well, Kelvin, how do you plan to mentor and help others?
I'm sorry, say that again?
How do you plan to mentor and help others based on your own, to pay it forward?
I love mentoring others. As of right now, I'm a judge for the CCAP Meatless Monday Recipe Contest. Mentor students helping me at my table at the CCAP benefit every year. And I also have a CCAP alumni, Alejandro, who has been with me for about 3 years. He started off as a line cook, and he's now my sous chef at La Harina. So it's just having the opportunity to be with the right people. And for me, it's inspiring when I inspire others. So I try to respond to all the emails that I get on a regular basis as well.
That's just fantastic. I mean, that's the beauty of the business, is that you learn from each other, you share, and you help, start training the next generation. And I love the fact, Richard, you start people when they're young, because, yes, many people are switching careers at another age, and that's a whole nother movement to consider. But to take people when they're young and they don't really know, and maybe they don't have a future, and give them a future is simply amazing. It's a recipe for success.
Yeah, I've been at it for many years, and I just the other day I heard that Jonathan Waxman, who took classes with me in San Francisco when he was at Berkeley, and then was inspired to go to Paris to study cooking. He just hired Angel Hidalgo, who's one of our graduates, and he was from the same school as Kelvin.
Wow.
It's
like a small world out there, right?
Yeah, very small.
So what's in store for CCAP? Do you have any new initiatives underway that you want to share with our listeners?
Well, we're working and have been working for many years, and I'm not sure we'll make it happen because of the politics involved, but we've developed an evaluation tests for students coming out of high school that we call CCAP approved. And it focuses on the skills that we talked about earlier, and making sure that the student can do his knife cuts and make a good omelet, has sanitation certification. And if they have that and they pass the test that we've devised, they get CCAP approved for their resume, and all the chefs in the cities where they work understand what that means. So it helps them when they're going out for their first job, both to give them the confidence to go out and know that they can do it, and gives the chefs the confidence to hire them.
It's a great initiative.
That's a great initiative.
It's another way to, obviously spread the mission and a greater understanding of what CCAP is about in a different way. Well, Richard and Kelvin, we want to thank both of you for being on our show today. We're just about at the wrap period. Do you want to just add one final comment and note, and also share, Richard, how people can follow you?
Well, I'm on Facebook, both as Richard Grausman, and we have a CCAP page also, so people can get involved.
CCAP Inc.
CCAP Inc. People who purchase my book at home, French Classics Made Easy, I offer the opportunity, if they have a problem, they take a photo with their phone, send it to me, and I solve their problems for them. So I keep up with a lot of people through social media.
You do. I encourage everybody to connect. I'll remember that problem when I try to make an omelet.
Listen, you just started making biscuits. Let's not go to omelets yet. That's a whole different ballgame.
Now that I mastered Natalie's biscuits, now I've got to do a French omelet. Yeah. Well, we want to wish you very good luck with your fundraiser on Monday, and hope it raises lots and lots of money. We're actually broadcasting from SD26 today. Tony May very graciously offered us a room, and he was just talking about how much he's looking forward to going there, and he was one of your honorees one year.
Yeah, just 2 years ago. Are you guys coming to the benefit?
Unfortunately, we're not. I wish we could. But
I have a radio show that night. I also do a radio show for women called Fearless Fabulous You from 9 to 10.
We'll give you a rain check.
Thank you. But we'll support you in another way.
Kelvin, before we all get off, why don't you tell everybody where they can come and try your food at the restaurant, where it is, and how people can look it up online,
where is La Marina?
Absolutely. First off, just thank you for having me as a guest with Richard. It's always an honor.
It's our pleasure.
Aside from that, you can find me starting May 1st at La Marina Restaurant. It's uptown in Washington Heights, one of the most amazing views of New York City.
Waterfront.
Waterfront, beautiful waterfront, beautiful lounge, beach area, and you can have 3 different types of food. You have more casual beach food, and you also have the fine dining in the restaurant. Aside from that, you can follow all my amazing food posts on Instagram. It's Chef Kelvin, ChefKelvin.
Fantastic.
Well, wonderful. Thank you so much for being on with us today, and congratulations on the honor of being the youngest executive chef out of CCAP. I think that's a great accomplishment.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you guys.
We're going to wrap.
Yeah, thank
Richard,
you guys for having us.
Oh, our pleasure. Richard, Kelvin, thanks so much, and then have a great afternoon.
You as well.
This is the Connected Table Live with Melanie Young and David Ransom. You can follow us on Facebook, The Connected Table, on Twitter, Connected Table. Please listen to all of our shows on iHeart.com under shows and personalities. We have many fantastic guests, and we encourage you to listen and share. We will be featuring the cookbook writer Joanna Pruis next week, along with Ricardo Ely of Ely Group, which is known for Ely Cafe, and a fantastic new Brunello. Join us again. And until then, have a delicious week.